Hey everyone, Tom Rosenkrantz here. I want to give you 5 tips that will instantly help your piano playing. Piano playing does not need to be complicated or confusing, but so often students and teachers make it that way. So these are 5 simple things that you can use today. So I hope they'll be helpful for you. I know that they've been helpful for me. Okay, let's get straight into it. Okay, so the first thing is hand positions, which may seem like the most boring thing to talk about, but I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. So think about it this way. When you're just standing somewhere, waiting in line at the shopping center or for a subway, your hands are just by your side. And if you were to lift your hand up like this, and if you were to bring it up in one piece, you would notice that this is a neutral hand position. Notice I'm not extracting, I'm not contracting. It's just in this neutral hand position. And this is what you want to use to play the piano most of the time. Of course, sometimes we have to play a big chord and we have to extract our hands a little bit like this. But the trick is this: you always want to come back to this neutral hand position. That's the thing. This is where the hand breathes. Notice that it's just relaxing. It's not like this, it's not like that, it's just relaxing here. And the other thing I want you to notice that it's not separated from the rest of the arm. This is one piece, and we'll talk about later why that really matters for the hand to be part of a bigger unit. So you can use this for all sorts of virtuoso things. Let me give an example, though, about why hand positions matter. If I play the opening of Tchaikovsky, I want you to notice that, of course, when I play that first chord, my hands are extracted a little bit, right? But then in between is what I'm interested in. In between that chord from here, I would try to have a neutral hand position so that now your hand, it had tension for a second on that chord, right? Hands look like that. But then in between the chords, hands look like that. So your hands are now breathing again. You see, I think the mistake that happens a lot is that you play that chord, then you keep that tension in that chord. You don't want to do that. You want your hands to be in neutral position. There's no reason for you to hold the tension in the air, right? But one of the problems that a lot of pianists face is that they hold tension when they don't need to. This is one example of a gazillion where you don't need to hold the tension in the air. Okay, the second thing to think about, I'll call follow the gesture or follow through with your body. When we play the piano, we want to be behind things. We don't want to feel like our arms are separated from us. We want to feel that when the arms move, we're moving too, to a certain extent. So let me give you an example. Very basic example, let's say the end of this Chopin Nocturne. This scale, I'm actually moving this way with the music, because the opposite would be this. If I'm stable, if I'm in the middle of the piano, then my arm gets so extracted like that, it makes it so hard to play. And so it makes sense that all I need to do is swing. I'm behind it now, I'm over here, and then as I go back, I'm there. So I'm behind the note. Same thing, I'm behind it. I've moved a little bit. Another example, this Messiaen piece from the Vandergaard starts here, but there's this right hand here. So if I stayed in the center of the piano, that would make that so hard to play, right? Look at my arm, that's so hard. But if I just move my posture or my center of gravity up an octave, it makes life so much easier. Now I'm here and I can get behind this. It feels so much easier. Okay, all I've done is I've gotten behind the gesture. Okay, tip number 3. I'll call it the prep. The prep is really important in piano playing. I'll just state the obvious. Notice that when you play a note on the piano, after we play the note, there's nothing we can do to the note to change it, okay? after I play that note, the note is not crescendoing, it's just dying away. So there's no need for me to have extra tension in the note. It really doesn't do anything whatsoever. What is important is that by the time we hit the key, we have to prep the hand in some way to get the sound that we want. So if I wanted to play those short sounds, for instance, then I need to make sure the hand is prepped with that kind of sound. And all I did for that is I'm focusing now, my fingertips are tighter, they're very active, and I'm concerned with how I go down and how I release the key. If I don't release the key, it's going to be long. If I want to make it short, I have to think about how I go down and how I go up. So those are short because I've realized two things. How I go down, what velocity and how firm is my finger, and how I come up. That's what makes it short, right? So this can be used in all different kinds of ways. So those are examples of short sounds. But what if I wanted a kind of legato sound? Well, then I wouldn't play legato like this, but rather I'd use a different part of my finger, right? So maybe I would use the pad of my finger to play something more legato. So instead of playing like this, I've now changed the palette of my hand, and it changes the sound naturally. So the second thing to think about and to care about is when you want to have a different kind of sound, you want to think about how you're prepping the note. Are you prepping the note with a legato touch with a pad or with active fingers? And each one will give you a variety of sound and a different kind of feeling altogether. Okay, tip number 4, I'm going to call it using the bigger muscles to help the smaller muscles. It goes back to this hand position that I was mentioning before. You know, when you have this big muscle behind the arm and behind the fingers, you can do a lot more things effortlessly than if you just use the fingers. Let me demonstrate this idea in a tremolo and a trill idea. So in this trill, I'll give you 2 examples. If I fold my arm like this, it makes it much harder to play. I can still play this, but because of my angle, I've cut off my hand from the rest of the arm. But you see, if I align this and keep this in one piece, it makes it unbelievably easier. All I've done is allowed the rest of this arm to be part of the music. So another example could be if I want to play this tremolo. See, if I start the tremolo here, again, my wrist is broken. If I think of this in one piece and allow this to rotate with the rest of my arm, it's actually so much easier. Or in that Beethoven example, you see, I've allowed my rest of my arm to be behind that. I'll give you 2 examples. Here's a broken example. Here's a better example with the rest of the arm being behind it. Same thing here. Okay, and the last tip, the 5th tip that I want to give you today is also a very basic thing you can try in your practice. Whenever something gets difficult, I want you to think that your torso is stable. What tends to happen when things get difficult, pianists will flail about this way. And actually that makes this so much more difficult because the arms constantly have to adjust to a pianist flailing about. So if you can think the next time you play something difficult, this is going to be unbelievably still because you want this to be able to move freely. So here's an example of Scriabin's 5th Sonata. The left hand is doing this, and the right hand has its own thing going on. And so for that to work together, it would really hurt it if I'm flailing about. But if this is still, it allows it to be much more fluid and easier. It's still going to be a difficult passage, but I don't want to make it more difficult, right? So if this is still, then notice my arms can move freely. And it makes it easier to play. Very simply, all I've done is I've decided that my upper body will be stiller, and so this can move freely. So next time you have a difficult passage, try that very simple thing. Stable torso in control of moving arm movements. Well, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoy these 5 tips for improving your piano playing today. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and leave some comments. Let me know which of these tips were most helpful for you. Happy practicing, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.